This video is going to highlight the Whelen AdvantEdge, but specifically how it relates to Whelen and Austin Electronics, the similarities and differences. Austin Electronics is, to many, the amber side or the economy side of Whelen Engineering, offering mostly lower cost strobe related products and almost exclusively in amber. And to some extent that is true. What a lot of people don't know is Austin was instrumental in developing and perfecting strobe technology as a warning product, and Whelen essentially absorbed or partnered with them to make Whelen the strobe heavy kind of company it became. So Austin was not just their amber market, they were their forefather. The last of the AdvantEdge light bars was an Austin version, released in 1999. Following the discontinuation of that bar, Austin made the transition to being an amber heavy-duty version of Whelen, and the Centurion replaced the AdvantEdge, which did directly correspond with that change to amber-only product. So let's take a walk through the initial similarities and then the growing differences of the AdvantEdge light bar series. Whelen came out with the AdvantEdge light bar in the late 1980s with the reflector design you see here. The bar was seen as a dual-level halogen edge. Everything was in a tray, which was a major selling feature. You could pull the tray out to work, and that was very popular, and to some extent Austin copied that. The original 1990 Austin AdvantEdge used that design. That rotator, the tray, pretty much the entire thing was used. Even the mini version of the Austin bar utilized those same Whelen rotators and tray design. This was maintained until several years later, when Whelen came out with the deep dish rotator, still using the tray design. However, Austin departed at that point from the Whelen design. As you can see, that tray design was maintained even with those deep dish rotators on the Whelen side, and proved very successful for Whelen. And then even when Whelen decided to change to the brushless bayonet style rotator several years later, again worked well for Whelen, but Austin had already departed from it. Here's an example of that tray design with the brushless rotator that Whelen utilized that Austin didn't. Austin decided to take the quote lighthouse style rotobeam innards and adapt that to the AdvantEdge frame, departing from the slide out tray. All of Austin's AdvantEdge light bars utilized the lighthouse style reflector and had departed from that tray. Individual slide-in trays were used to lower those taller light assemblies, and here's an example of how. In the mini bar, it proved quite popular. The larger bars didn't sell quite so well, and this stayed a staple of the Austin version of the AdvantEdge for the rest of the run of the bar. In fact, it remained so popular that they hung their hat on it being a dual-faced assembly, and specifically noted that in their product descriptions. The AdvantEdge light bar came to an end in the late 1990s, and one of the last versions offered was actually the Austin version with the dual rotating reflector. There's an example of what that might look like. There's an example compared to, in the middle, the standard Whelen, and there is what Whelen adapted as a replacement, and there's a comparison of the two of them next to each other. Here is the dual-faced rotator in action in a mini bar. As we turn to the side, we can see it is the rotobeam style lighthouse assembly, bulb in the middle, dual reflectors rotating around it. You can see how it takes up more vertical space, Here's an example of a regular AdvantEdge with the regular rotators. You can see that they don't take up quite as much height, and they are on the slide-in tray. Comparing that to the lighthouse style, the lighthouse has to be recessed into the bar significantly in order to make clearance, which seemed to work fine for the lighthouse assembly. If you pull out the tray from the standard style, you can see that the rotator is recessed a little bit, but it does mount directly to that pull-out tray. There's not a whole lot of depth gained from that design. It works quite well for that type of rotator, but here looking at the lighthouse rotator, you can see how much vertical depth has to be gained by recessing it down into the assembly, just to get it to clear. Both of them rotating, you can see they serve different purposes, but both perform quite well. You can also see the amount of depth that had to be gained in order to use the lighthouse style assembly. The lighthouse style assembly could have been outfitted with filters. It seldom was. The whole design, the mirrors were different. They slid in. Everything was modularized in the lighthouse style assembly. Each individual rotator slid out on its own little mini recessed tray, including the mirror as you saw. So there would be the innards of an entire mini bar, each component having its own. Here is a recessed style regular rotator compared to the regular rotator not recessed. Whelen began offering the modular recessed rotator in other varieties to replace the lighthouse ones, but also to replace failing portions of traditional AdvantEdge light bars. They were more modular. They could also be used to design other things. Here they are compared to one another. You'll note how high the modular style sits up in the frame. Not quite as effective in my opinion, but much easier to install and retrofit. If we slide them out a little bit, we'll see the ease of removal. You can remove just one at a time versus the entire assembly for the entire bar. But again, you're sacrificing a little bit of vertical real estate. The reflector doesn't hit the entire lens. Again, what you lose in focus, you probably gain in modular ability. And because these were made all the way to the end of the run of the light bar, they were used in a lot of even non-Austin applications. Because of the modular nature, the higher sitting version was used in Firemaster bars, longer Towmaster bars, and other applications where using a full-length insert really wasn't practical for the application. The top bar here is two regular rotators. The bottom is lighthouse style on left and raised modular regular style on right, if you want to compare the footprints of the lights. Here is an example of all three. Modular standard, standard from a tray, and lighthouse style modular. You can see that the standard and the modular standard look very similar. That would be the center and the right. Obviously the lighthouse style looks different. However, the mounting would be the same as the modular standard. Why the change? Again, I think just keeping everything modular near the end of the run of the bar made a lot of sense. Really, you're just gaining a one insert per rotator and losing a full bar length tray, making things simpler. It should be noted that while Austin departed from Whelen's rotator design in the AdvantEdge when they went to the deep dish, and then later when they went to the brushless style rotator, Austin actually used and mirrored Whelen's use of rotators in their versions of the Responder mini bar, mirroring them exactly with no changes at all. While often thought of as just the amber version of Whelen, Austin's version of the AdvantEdge highlights just one way that they were so much more. Not covered in this video are two types of AdvantEdge bars that are probably worth mentioning or even having their own videos. One of those is the OSC, which is an all-oscillating version of the AdvantEdge, and the other is going to be the HID version. The OSC used Generation 1 rotators oscillating on Pierce alert assemblies, and the HID version just used Austin-style lighthouse reflectors but with HID bulbs. Again, neither of those are really covered here, and hopefully there will be a specific video for those at a later time.